Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the BSIS Inspection Survival Guide. This is a video that's going to help you survive either an inspection or an audit. Really, they're the same thing. As a disclaimer for all of my videos, I do not work for BSIS, the Bureau of Security Investigative Services. I do not represent any government or any regulatory agency, and I am also not an attorney. Nothing in this video should be construed as legal or professional advice. Here is our objectives for today. We're going to review and understand the following concepts. We'll start off in 4 parts. First part is, what are your chances of being inspected? That's going to be part 1. Part 2, I'm going to discuss announced versus unannounced inspections. And in part 3, we are going to discuss pre-inspection expectations. And then the last part, we're going to discuss the subject of inspection. It might seem a little bit confusing right now at this moment as we speak, but I'm going to clarify what the subject of inspection means. Let's begin. Part 1, chances of being audited. If you want to know what your chances of being audited are, there are several components that we need to discuss. We definitely need to have a discussion of high probability of an inspection on licensees in several categories. What that means is some categories of licenses have higher probability of inspection or audit than anything else. Now, I want you to keep in mind that when I say inspection, I also mean the word audit. We can use them vice versa. We're going to be discussing the license census, intelligence, the DCA annual report. That's a Department of Consumer Affairs annual report. I rely heavily on the DCA annual report. Okay, so what are your chances of being inspected or being audited? Remember, inspect and audited for the purposes of this video mean the same thing. Well, it depends on the type of license that you have and your activity. Let's discuss this concept a tad bit more. So, if you are engaging in unlicensed activity, then you have a high probability of being inspected. And I'll tell you what that probability is. Engage in lawful activity, then your chances of being inspected are kind of slim. And whenever there's a consumer complaint of a violation of the BPC, you might hear that term a lot, BPC, and I'm referring to Business and Professions Code. There's complaints of any violations, you have a good chance of being audited or inspected. You have a 99.9% chance. Now, notice I put 99.9% chance. These are not referring to exact numbers. What I'm referring to generally is there's a very, very good chance that you're going to be inspected. Those of you who run firearms or baton training facilities, maybe perhaps you have a private patrol operator license and a firearm or baton training facility. Well, you have a very good chance of being inspected because, well, let's be honest here. The inspector or the auditor can do 2 things at once. So on one fishing line, there's a potential of 2 fish that can be caught. I know that's kind of a cheesy analogy, but if you have a firearms facility and a private patrol operator firm, you got a really good chance of being audited. Now for baton facilities, you have a very good chance of being audited the first 90 days. Okay, first 90 days of having a new license. Expect that audit. If you are on probation, okay, and I'm not talking about some type of criminal probation, maybe for DUI or drug sales or something like that. No, I'm talking about BSIS has investigated you in the past, and perhaps you have been adjudicated in the court of law. The disposition is perhaps probation, where you're inspected all the time. Again, you're going to have a 99.9% chance, almost for certain, that you're going to be inspected. Again, I'm not referring to criminal probation. This is a form of administrative probation. If the administrative court for Department of Consumer Affairs finds you in the wrong. Or if you also plead to probation instead of some hefty penalties or even a suspension. Now, if you have a private patrol operator license, I think the best way of figuring out whether or not you're being inspected is find out what BSIS has been doing, their enforcement division in particular, the previous year. You know what they did the previous year and previous years, several years before then, it might give you a good idea of whether you're going to be inspected or not. We'll discuss that also further. Current political issues. Guys, this is a big topic, especially right now as I'm speaking in the year 2021. There is a call for change in regards to use of force standards for police. That push is trickling on into the private security sector. You can definitely expect more audits, more oversight by BSIS. So whatever happens in a political year that's heated, well, you can expect more audits or even less. This is what I found out in this presentation, is that whenever there's a BSIS, whenever there's a new chief for BSIS, there's what I refer to as changing of the guards. Usually or typically, the new BSIS chief is going to enforce a lot of the business professions code. You're going to see a lot of audits, a lot of enforcement, especially during the first years as chief. BSIS chief wants to satisfy those who got this person into office. This is in politics, this is what usually happens. You want to show that you're doing something. Now, a BSIS chief can also, on the other side, can engage in a series of education. So instead of having the enforcement division just enforce the living heck out of all the facilities, all the firms out there, they might engage instead in an educational effort, educate the public, educate all the facilities on what the Business Professions Code requires. So it's either or. But generally, whenever there's a change in the guards, the new chief wants to show others that he or she has leadership traits, has that ability to enforce the Business Professions Code. And I'm not saying that a leadership trait is enforcing the Business Professions Code. All I'm saying is that the BSIS chief has to prove something and might believe that enforcing the Business Professions Code is the way to show that you're getting things done. And this is just my opinion. This is not a fact. So, according to my intelligence, and there are some things that I don't disclose, I do talk to people out there. You can definitely judge whether or not the information I'm giving you is credible because I'm not disclosing my source. I will say that my confidential sources are not the only source of information. They're not the only source of evidence in my presentation. It's one of many components. So you can take it for a grain of salt or more if you like. But this is what I found. That the BSIS objective as of 2021 is to conduct 3 to 4 site inspections per month per analysis. And I found that as of 2021, there are 10 analyses. I listened to the July 2021 committee meeting, BSIS committee meeting, and I was hearing the chief state that the chief or representative state that BSIS is almost to capacity, almost to full capacity, and this has been a rare event. So we can assume that about 10 analysts is the norm for BSIS. So when you have 10 analysis, the objective is to conduct 300 to 400 inspections per year. On the right is the annual report. the majority of my research was conducted using this annual report, 2019, 2020. In general, whenever I mention a specific year, I'm referring to the actual annual report of that fiscal year. So here's fiscal year 2019, 2020. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that these reports, sometimes they're turned in late, and remember, they need to be reviewed before they are disseminated to the public, before they're available. See on the bottom right, the data portal website address. Before they become available on the address, again, they need to be fact-checked. They need to be checked for grammar, errors, anything else before they're distributed to the public. So it does take some time. So you're never going to get usually the exact year that we're on. We're usually 1 year behind. So bottom right, you go to that link. It's not clickable, but you just type it in the address bar and it'll take you to the annual reports for any given year. You guys, please verify the information I'm giving you. If the year's 2022, make sure that you check out the 2021 annual report. Remember, we're usually a little bit more than a year late. 2024, check the 2023 annual report. So in 2020, we had 309,048 active licensees. It sounds like a large number, but when you take into account that a security guard can also have a private investigator license, a private patrol operator license, maybe an alarm company license, that's a potential of 4 licensees that might just show as, well, it's one person that will show as 4 different licensees. So the data of 309,048, it can be skewed a little bit when you consider that people can have multiple licenses. But we still should look at this number as a point of reference, an estimate. Let's just not discount these numbers here. There's 292,833 security guards that have licenses here, current. Private investigators, we have 8,329. Private patrol operators, we have 2,477. Locksmiths, we have 2,174. Alarm company operators, 1,810. Proprietary security employers, we have 607. In another portion of this series, of this training, I discussed that there should be more than 607. I think there's a lack of education out there that proprietary employers, most of them don't realize that they actually need a proprietary security employer license if they have a uniform guard force. But that's a topic of another discussion. Firearm training facilities, we have 336. Repossession agencies, 268. Baton training facilities, we have 164. Now, when you total all these numbers, you guys, we get 309,000. Remember, BSIS only has 10 analysis, and they're in charge of all of these licensees. that's a lot, you guys. That's a lot. So everywhere I put a green check mark, that refers to a licensee that I have studied over this period of designing this course. So a lot of this information, I'm considering every licensee that I check mark in green. Firearms training facility, proprietary security employer, I think I just got those mixed. Private investigator. All four of these categories that are check marked, when you also consider, well, when you consider security guard as well, that's a lot, you guys. This is a lot of licensees that have to be overseen. I also want you to keep in mind that the security guard category, I didn't design a check mark for that, but we should have a check mark. The security guard category, private investigator, private patrol operator, proprietary security employer, firearms training facility, tend to take more time away from all the other facilities. And why is that? Well, these categories tend to, and this is we can argue on this, they do tend to take a little bit more time than the other categories. I'm sorry, they tend to create a little bit more liability than others. So what I did for all of these years, 2019, 18, 17, 16, 14, 13, and 12, I went through every single annual report and I documented how many licensees there were and how many total inspections there were of all the licensees. Okay, so you see all the categories that were discussed in the previous slide, all the different licensees. When I say total inspection of all licensees, I'm referring to every single one of the licensee categories that are out there. Okay. What I did here is, as you notice, I skipped 2015, and the reason for that is because I don't believe that the data was credible. A lot of the data was skewed. There was more licensees than other years, and the data just appeared to be skewed. And I think the total inspections also, the numbers just didn't add up to me. Feel free, ladies and gentlemen, to verify my facts that I present, or the information that I present that you might believe are facts. Please verify the information. If you want to look up 2015, go ahead. But I have no hidden intent on why I did not put 2015 in there. So in this slide, I want to show you that different BSIS chiefs have a bearing on the total inspections of all licensees. And remember, I told you in the other slides that whenever there's a new BSIS chief, that chief, it seems like most of the time or many times, wants to show his or her authority, wants to show his or her constituents that he or she is able to get the job done, to be aggressive on enforcement. And usually within the first year, they become aggressive on inspections and audits. So between 2010 and 2013, we have Chief Mason. 2014 to 2019, we have Chief Alarcon. So look at 2014 when we had Chief Alarcon. We went from 2013, which is only 61 inspections under Chief Mason's command, and we jumped all the way to 138 inspections. Okay. Now, if you look at 2012, we were at 325 inspections, even though we had the same chief, I believe. Now, I think the reason for that, I'm not too sure, but I can suspect that I think there was a lot of complaints with private patrol operators creating liability and not having insurance policies, to back up any types of civil claims. During that year, around that time period, if you had an unarmed private patrol operator agency, unarmed, you did not have to have insurance, commercial liability insurance. But after the law passed around 2013, 2012 has been introduced. You had to have that license, or otherwise your private patrol operator license would just be suspended pending you having this insurance. So in 2019, okay, we have Chief Lynn Andres. She often refers to herself. We had 2,418 licensees, and we jumped from 95 inspections all the way to 166 inspections. And then look at 2020. Okay, we jumped to 269 inspections of all the licensees. Okay, so there was a large jump, as you can see. Now, this does not mean that when there's a new chief that there's going to be for sure more inspections. However, the data that we have over almost, it looks like 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, over a 10-year period, it tends to show that whenever there's a new chief, we're going to have more inspections out there. Okay, so in part 2, which we'll begin right now, we're going to be talking about pre-inspection expectations. What can you expect during your inspection? Now, if you properly plan for an inspection, there's less of a chance of you being in violation of the Business Professions Code. So before BSIS reaches out to you, okay, they're going to review any internal notes. They have an internal system, keep track of how you as an organization or you as an individual have been performing over the years. Usually if you're doing a great job, there's not going to be notes out there that say you do a great job. But if you're starting to generate complaints, formal complaints, you're going to be in their system, and they're going to review that before they head out to the actual inspection. You can also expect BSIS to Google search the name of your business, or if you ever email them or disclose an email on your application, there is a domain with many organizations that's at the end of your email. So, if your email is John or Jose at 123security.com, well, they're going to probably Google 123security.com, and they want to know what type of operations you have. So if you have a private patrol operator license, you should not be offering private investigator services. That will get you in trouble. When BSIS, they show up to your door and they start asking you these demanding questions, these stressful questions, they have the answers to them already, you guys. They just want to hear it from you. Beware of Google. You want to make sure that you're advertising services that you're licensed to perform. I can't say that enough. Don't advertise alarm company. Don't advertise that you install alarms when you don't have an ACO license. You could just imagine that BSIS analyst or investigator has a computer screen in front of them. They're checking you guys out, you guys. So if your company is Patrol West 7, they'll Google you, they'll land on your landing page, see what you have. Make sure that you have LAN on your website. Okay, LAN stands for license number. Okay, here, PPO 123, whatever it is, you guys. The address or the phone number of Patrol West 7. Here, we'll call it 1200 Main Street, Anytown, California, 12342. Name of the business. Okay, Patrol West 7 is sufficient. You guys do not display any BSIS logo. I know that there's some organizations, and I'm not going to admit to this, but somebody that I know, could be me, I'm not going to say whether it's me or not, but little did this person know that this logo, displaying this logo, is a misdemeanor. Now, obviously, I would display this. I'll admit to it now, okay? It was me. I admit to displaying this logo before the law came into effect. And why did I do that? Well, I wanted people to know where they can check me. They can make sure that I have a verified license. So many organizations, you just click on the BSIS logo and it takes you to the BSIS webpage to verify a license. You can't do this, you guys. You can't display their logos, not even to verify someone's license. Okay, this is a misdemeanor. You can be charged with a criminal offense. This is a crime. So part 3, we're going to discuss unannounced versus unannounced. Announced versus unannounced inspections. We're going to define what I mean by when I say unannounced versus unannounced, the reasons for these types of inspections, the preparation that's involved in them. What is an unannounced inspection? An unannounced inspection is defined as an inspection where the BSIS analyst arrives at the place of business without notice. Okay, they just pop up and they tend to surprise you. Also, whenever there's a consumer complaint, that is the most common reason for an unannounced inspection. And right now, either an analyst or a DCA, Department of Consumer Affairs, a sworn investigator that's with the enforcement division, okay, will call you unexpectedly, or they're just going to show up. Okay, what's the difference between the analysis and the investigator? Well, the investigator is sworn, and the investigator has peace officer authority. That is the main difference. Now, if a DCA sworn investigator, any sworn investigator contacts you, the case is probably a lot more severe than if an analyst contacts you. As of 2021, there's only one investigator that's assigned to BSIS. Remember, we have over 328 licensees out there. Why are they contacting you? Well, it seems like there's a severe case. So you got to really be careful what you say and what you disclose. You do have rights. Make sure that you have an attorney with you to enforce those rights. I know that many of you are dying to ask me, Sean, how do I prepare for an unannounced inspection? This is very difficult, you guys, to prepare for something that's unannounced because you're not prepared for it. But I believe that by hearing this discussion, listening, tuning in, you're going to be better off than having no information beforehand. And I also want to reiterate that I am not an attorney and none of this information is professional advice. I don't have any special connections with BSIS. This is only my personal opinion. All the facts, not facts, but everything here is not facts. They are my opinions only. So number one, you don't want to cause any unreasonable delay. Well, what's that? So if an analysis shows up to the work site and asks to see the personnel file of all the employees you had over the past 2 years, it would probably be unreasonable in an administrative court if you say, hold on a minute, I gotta go to the bathroom, and then you come out of the bathroom 2 hours later or an hour later. Okay, that would be a sign of unreasonable delay. In the eyes of BSIS, you are being deceptive. Okay, don't cause those unreasonable delays, but there could be some reasonable delays. So if they want to see the records, if you have everything online or a system, and let's just say you're listening to this video and you're not the qualified manager, perhaps maybe you are the branch manager and you don't have access, it would be reasonable for you to say, hey, look, the qualified manager has access to all the employee records. I am in control of this branch office, and I'm supervising as we speak all of the employees that are under my control at this particular website, but I don't have the code to this computer. The qualified manager does. That would be, in my opinion, a form of unreasonable delay, and I hope this helps as an example. I'm sorry, this would be a reasonable delay. This would be reasonable. So I want to stress the point that even if you're not the branch manager, maybe your supervisor, or maybe the owner of the company, you want to wait for the qualified manager to arrive or respond, okay, to the office. And this is why. The qualified manager has the most knowledge of record keeping duties, the labor code, the business professions code, some of the civil code, and the policies and operation of the company. Okay, this is the information source. Don't have anybody else other than the qualified manager be present. So if you're not the qualified manager, in my opinion, it is a reasonable delay to wait for this person to arrive. And it's also reasonable if this person is on vacation, ladies and gentlemen, and they unexpectedly arrived. Remember, you still have to show that this qualified manager is still in control of the day-to-day operations of the business. But if you stated that you can't control or you can't get a hold of them because they are on vacation, BSIS might view that as unreasonable, and perhaps an administrative court might affirm that. But it is to some judges, it is reasonable to take vacations, and it's reasonable to delegate the authority of a qualified manager to somebody else. Okay. Now, it's up to you, it's up to your organization to come up with explanations, justifications. You don't want to just come up with lies and excuses, because it's going to affect you adversely when they are up to prosecute you. Okay, so make sure that you always tell the truth. If the inspecting relative calls you, it's okay to verify their identity and purpose. So I don't believe that that's unreasonable delay. If somebody calls you a representative, I mean, there's so many instances of identity theft, you have to verify this person. So maybe this person calls you, hey, I need to know who you are. Can you please send me an email, a Department of Consumer Affairs or BSI's email with your signature on that. Now, when I mean signature, I mean that their name, their title, the address. That is reasonable in my opinion, you guys, because of all the identity theft. But if you are prosecuted in the administrative court, you have to explain to them that the reason why you wanted them to verify their identity was because of identity theft. And anybody could be pretending to be BSIS on the phone, and you did not want to take that chance. You don't want to create that pearl for the company. I will encourage you that if they show unannounced, to contact an attorney immediately for direction. Okay? It's okay to say this, in my opinion. If they start asking some questions, just say, hey, look, I want to wait for a response from my attorney. It appears by you showing up unexpectedly or unannounced that in the scope of everything, there could potentially be some type of discipline against my license. And for that reason, I want to wait for an attorney so I can have adequate legal representation. Now, they're persistent. They're demanding to seize files and demanding you to answer things. Okay, I would say this. I will answer that question that you're asking of me, but I'm only answering that because of duress. And I believe that if I do not give you an answer, that my license can become suspended, revoked, and I don't want to lose property. I don't want to lose income for others and myself if I refuse to abide by the orders that you're giving me. Okay? And you probably want to have a witness there when you give this statement. You want to ask for permission to record the statement as well. If they don't want to give you permission to record, that's probable. Just move into an area where maybe you generally record audio, where people do not have an expectation of privacy. Maybe there are signs that state there's audio and visual recording in progress at all times. Maybe go stand in that area, point that sign to them, and give the statement that I just told you or explained to you. Okay, that's a possibility. Will a statement save you in court? Again, I'm not an attorney. It's not legal advice. This is just my opinion. You definitely want to talk to an attorney for further direction, whether this would work or not. I also want you to keep in mind that you should not volunteer information, and don't try to be too helpful, because sometimes you might disclose information. So, for example, you're only required under the California Code of Regulations to keep employee files for 2 years. Okay, let's just say you kept an employee file for 4 years. Okay, and you tell the analyst, hey, look at all these files. Okay, I have some files for 10 years or 7 years. They open it up and they find out that you might be missing some information. Maybe this folder might lead to other things, you guys. Okay, don't, in the end, you're going to reflect back in time and wonder why you became too helpful, why you volunteered this information. Okay, this presentation is not designed to help you hide things. It's just designed to help you enforce rights that are probable to you. Okay. Do not let BSIS wander in private areas or areas that have nothing to do with regulation. Okay, you have a secret room where you do maybe interrogations of maybe customers who steal, or maybe where you do polygraph testing or something like that. If the area has nothing to do with regulation, do not let them wander in there. Okay. Okay, I encourage you to lock all the doors to all the offices and give them a tour. And most of the time, they're going to want to give you the tour, but you might have that one analyst or investigator that's going to want to wander all over the place. You start locking the doors. These doors, when they're locked, they become private areas. Okay, and you generally need a search warrant to go inside of some of these areas. By you keeping the doors wide open, okay, in a way, you're inviting the government, meaning BSIS, to wander in these areas. So close them. Okay, if you don't have a lock, that's fine, but close them. And also train your staff to do the same thing. Everything that I discuss on this slide as well, discuss with your staff, especially the administrative staff. Oftentimes, your leadership team might be out for lunch, which is actually, it's a reasonable delay if they're out to lunch. Now, if you're out for a 5-hour lunch, a 4-hour lunch, I'm not too sure that's reasonable. But who am I to say? But oftentimes, the leadership team is out to lunch, and you have maybe administrative staff like a secretary or maybe a dispatcher. You don't want this person not knowing how a BSIS inspection is conducted. Okay? You don't want them. You want them to know how it should not be conducted as well, but you want them to know to contact somebody in a leadership position, preferably the qualified manager, somebody that has been tested by BSIS, somebody that is supposed to be an expert at knowing how to run a business, in particular that private security business. So we talked about unannounced inspections. What is an unannounced inspection? Well, my definition of an announced inspection is as follows. It's defined as inspection with advance notice through a phone call, email, or letter. Okay, most of the time it's the phone call. They'll send you a phone, they'll call you, say, Mr. Mrs. So-and-so, this is BSIS from the Enforcement Division, or hey, I'm an analyst. We're planning on doing an inspection. When's a great time to meet? Okay. Those type of inspections, you generally don't have to worry as long as you're abiding by every or all the business and professions code sections out there and the California Code of Regulations. Now, usually the announced inspection, in my opinion, is the BSIS goal for each analysis to conduct between 3 and 4 inspections per year. Now, they usually don't meet that goal, but that's an objective for BSIS. Can you just imagine what the complaints do to all the inspections? If an analysis is supposed to do 3 or 4 inspections per year and they get a lot of consumer complaints, well, a lot of those inspections are going to disappear. Or they can actually, I just figured this out, you might actually get more inspections. But I'm talking about routine inspections. The routine inspections are compromised when there's more consumer complaints. So in part 4, I promised at the beginning to clarify what subject of inspection is. So when I say subject of inspection, I'm referring to the things that are objects that are going to be inspected or audited. So for sure, the patrol vehicle signage. Okay, we're going to discuss this into deep detail. This is just the introduction into part 4. We'll talk about the Private Patrol Operator License and Wall Certificate, advertisements, uniforms, insurance, employee file, the firearms, deadly weapons log. The famous wall certificate. The wall certificate is one of the first things that BSIS looks for when they walk through your doors. You want to place the certificate in a conspicuous area. What this means is you want to put the certificate in an area where the general public, when they walk through your public doors, it's at a location where they don't have to manipulate any furniture, they don't have to walk around something, they don't have to walk into an office just to see your certificate. It's within public view, and that's what that term refers to, conspicuous. So for example, here's your office, you have your front desk receptionist doing a great job behind that desk, servicing the customers, and right there you place the wall certificate. Now you don't have to put it there, you could put it somewhere else, but I think in this picture this is probably the best place to place it. And you want to use the most current certificate. The analyst is going to walk up close to that certificate, almost like they're using a magnifying glass, and make sure it's the most current certificate. It's a valid certificate. They don't want any copies, they want originals. Don't display that copy. Okay, so for advertisements, BSIS, as said earlier in this presentation, they conduct intelligence. They scope out your website, they see what's on it, and they see what you have advertised on there. They also want to make sure that you are following the Business Professions Code when it comes down to advertising. Remember LAN, L-A-N. They might also ask you for a business card for your review. Now, you might say and argue, well, a business card isn't an advertisement. Well, it depends on how you argue that point. If you present it to a prospective client, customer, then, and you anticipate perhaps getting service, some type of security contract as a result of giving that business card to this client, well, it's most likely going to be viewed as in administrative court as an advertisement. Okay, if it's an advertisement, you're going to need LAN, L-A-N, license number, address, and name. Okay, uniforms. They're going to look at the badge and patch design when they approved it. So BSIS, at some point during your license, they approve a particular badge and patch design. They have a copy of that. Okay, they're gonna ask you to actually bring a uniform, and they're going to compare that design to what was approved. As for the badge, they're going to also ask for a badge. You might have the metal one, might have the cloth one, but it still needs to meet all the requirements. This slide you're going to like, because I'm going to show you exactly an example of an actual uniform. And for many, if I show you a picture, it's going to help you remember. So remember, and this is a review of the badge and patch design. There's a section that I covered in great detail on what is supposed to go on your uniforms. This is just a quick review, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want any badges on the belt or anywhere other than the left breast of the uniform, shirt, or jacket. Okay, right there. You see this in a lot of movies. You can't have the badge right there. It has to be on the upper left breast of the uniform, shirt, or the jacket. Here's another private security officer. And it looks like he's wearing a distinctive uniform. So remember, what is a distinctive uniform? Well, this is a uniform where the general public, if they see you wearing this uniform, they would be more inclined to believe that you are a private security professional. Okay, if you wear a distinctive uniform, then you have to abide by the Business Professions Code. Right here, you see that patch, it's just the American flag. that was not approved by BSIS, in my opinion. Obviously, this is just an example, but it's missing the name of the company, missing the words private security. So this American flag, although an excellent looking patch on his shoulder, would not meet the requirements. The badge, okay. Now, obviously, he's wearing a star badge, and the only example I can find without running into any copyright laws is kind of like the shield version. It needs to say the words private security. It needs to have the name of the company. Here, Patrol West 7. And it needs to have a badge number on it. So we'll just give them badge number 20. If you don't know already, if you have a long, you should not pick a long security name, but if you have no other choice, remember, you can always write to BSIS and get maybe some initials approved by them or a shortened version of the name and explain that this version of the name or initials signifies this particular name of a private security company. If BSIS approves that, and they often do, you can have a name of a security company that is shortened on the uniform. Okay, let's analyze the left shoulder patch. You need to say the name of the security company that's on, remember, on file with BSIS records, Patrol West 7 here, for example. It needs to have the words private security. Okay. Insurance. BSIS is going to definitely want to know what your insurance policy declaration states. What does it cover? So they might ask you to provide a copy of your commercial insurance liability policy that covers all of the legal limits. Okay, they want the most current policy. Some of you might say, well, I email it to them, or my agent emails it to them at the beginning of every year or right before the insurance expires. That might be true, but there's also a great chance that they're going to ask for a copy. And remember, what you're asking your insurance agent for proof is called this, the certificate of liability. Okay. And this is what it has to cover. The PPO name has to be specified, and it's a name that's exactly associated with your BSIS license. You need to specify the PPO license number, specify the insurance policy number, and start and end dates of the policy period. The certificate needs to reflect the general liability insurance policy that covers a minimum of $1 million, okay, $1 million of liability for each occurrence. And it needs to indicate that the BSIS at West Sacramento, California 95798 is in the certificate holder section. It also needs to reflect that the general liability insurance policy provides occur or occurrence coverage. These are the requirements as of 2021. Obviously, every year can change, but this is at a minimum what your certificate of liability needs to show. I know I covered this under the insurance section, so this is pretty much a review, but this is definitely something that the state is going to want to ask you. We have a firearms deadly weapons log that BSIS will ask. Remember, if this pertains to you, okay? And the log has to be maintained according to the Business Professions Code, and it needs to be up to date, and it needs to include the following information. The make, model, and serial number of the firearm, or a description of any other deadly weapon. So here we have a private security professional patting down somebody, and obviously the baton is going to be a deadly weapon, so that there needs to be a description of that in the daily weapons log. So here I would put a black baton, black side handle baton made of aluminum, plastic. They're most of the time they're made out of aluminum, but baton manufacturers will change it up a little bit sometimes. Now, it says here a description of any other deadly weapon, okay? And the way that the Business Professions Code, specifically 7582.2a, describes a deadly weapon is as follows. It could be a blackjack, a slingshot, a billy, a sand club, sandbag, and if you are a native English speaker, if you haven't heard of any of these terms, your staff probably doesn't have one of these items. Okay, so carrying on, billy. Those of you who don't know what a billy is, that side handle baton that the security officer has, that's a billy, also known as a billy club. Okay, there's a sand club, and I believe that that's also referred to as a sap in the olden days. Police officers, and I think some private security used to carry this leather object, and in that leather object was, I think, some lead or some sand, and you would use it to get the attention of people, or you could use it as a weapon. That weapon in most cases isn't even allowed anymore. Well, actually, it says here it's not. It's considered a deadly weapon. So you can call it a sand club, or it says here a sandbag. Okay, so if you have anything that's made of leather or any material that has some type of sand in it, or even lead, that's what it refers to. Metal knuckles, you can't have those brass knuckles. You can't have a dirk or a dagger. And remember, the best way of knowing what a dirk or dagger is, it's basically a fixed blade, okay, that is concealed. And that's what a dirk or dagger is. And there's no, so you have a handle, and at the end of the handle, there's no type of like guard for the wrist. That's usually what a dirk or dagger refers to. And it also says here, keep special note, a knife having a blade longer than 5 inches. Okay, 5 inches. The blade I carry at my work is about 3.5. Many are 4 inches, but keep an eye out for the 5-inch blade. You have a 5-inch blade, that needs to be in the daily weapon log. Okay, a razor with an unguarded blade. I don't know why you'd carry that as a weapon, but if you feel the need to, make sure that you have it with a guarded blade. Otherwise, you have to put this item in the daily weapon log. And it says here a metal pipe or a bar that's used or intended as a club. So you can get, I think there's a martial arts in Korean. I can't remember not Korean. It's a Filipino art, and it's with a baton or a stick. I don't know the correct term for it, but it's a longer baton or stick than the police or security carry. If that's intended to be used as a club, then it's a deadly weapon as well. So any of those items would be deadly weapons, and you do have to put that in the daily weapon log. A lot of the security staff out there, they might carry these foldable pocket knives. When you expose them and you have them concealed, then that's another example of a dirk or a dagger. Okay, just depending on the exact composition of it. But most part, remember, when you see your guard staff with these knives with the pocket clips, just measure it. Make sure it's not longer than 5 inches. So with the weapons log, we're continuing this here. It needs to state the owner's name of the weapon, okay, the name of authorized users, and a proof of proficiency for such weapon. And this is a problem with if you feel the need to carry a blade over 5 inches. How do you determine proof of proficiency? That's a huge question. I don't want to be a case study for BSIS, so sometimes I avoid testing the limits of the law, so to speak. But there really is no case law that I'm aware of, or even a guideline that states what a proof of proficiency is if you want to carry a razor blade with an unguarded edge or a blade longer than 5 inches. Now, baton, if you have a baton, your baton permit is proof of proficiency, and for firearm, it's the firearms permit, and in particular, it's the qualification portion that's on the back of the firearm permit. You'll see that in the renewal that shows the proof of proficiency. Patrol vehicles, they're going to go into your parking lot, but before then they'll ask you about your patrol vehicles, where they're at, and they're going to look at them. And they rarely go inside. They just want to see what the signage is from the outside. So this is what they're going to look for. They're going to see if it's painted in a manner to resemble a motor vehicle used by a peace officer or traffic officer. Okay, so you have your patrol car here. The question is does your unit, your patrol unit, look like this police car up here that's used by some jurisdictions? Okay, if it is, well, it's probably painted in a manner that's in violation of 27605. In my jurisdiction, I saw a particular security agency that would reverse the colors. So at the police car on the upper right of the screen, you see a white door, and then everything else is black. Where it was black, he would paint white, and then the doors would be black. And he would have the words patrol, private patrol on there. Now, that, it depends on the opinion, really, of the law enforcement officer that's might be issuing a citation, whether this is a violation. Now, this, if you fight the citation and go to Superior Court, it's really Superior Court judge that will decide whether it's painted in a manner to resemble a peace officer, traffic officer, motor vehicle. Okay. So on the bottom right, I have these red circles and squares. Whenever I mention something, I'll refer to that circle or square. So they're going to look for a lack of a spotlight. Okay. There isn't supposed to be any type of a spotlight there. There's no spotlight, then you're great. If you need more direction on that, you guys, 24404. A lot of your police trade-ins have a spotlight. You can't have it. Okay. They're going to also look for a lack of a siren and an air horn. You can't have that per 27002 California Vehicle Code. Where I put the square is traditionally where the siren and air horn are located. They're going to look for a lack of a red or blue light on the light bar. You can't have those red lights or blue lights. 27606 of the California Vehicle Code tells us you can't have that. And they're going to look for the lettering of, listen carefully, either private security or security patrol, okay, on the rear and both sides of the vehicle. Okay, rear, at their rear, both sides of the vehicle. Employee file. They're going to ask to look at your employee file. They're going to look at the payroll data. They're going to look at training records. And these are the best practices. This is just my recommendation that I have for you. You want to create a list of current employees and give the list to BSIS. Okay. If you just show a list of every person that you hire, let's just say you're a larger organization, you have between 50 and 300 security officers. If you just give them access to the whole list, it can go wrong for you because they might look into things where they probably wouldn't have looked into had it not been for you giving this huge list. Remember, the more records you have, the more potential for human error. So you create the list of current employees. Okay, so for example here, I got 3 employees. I got Shanika Brown, I got John Williamson, I got Jose Lopez. Just give them numbers. I mean, you don't have to have the date of birth when you create the list. Just a simple list, just like this, you guys. Bottom left, simple. Okay, you'll have your file cabinets. Okay, have a file cabinet. This is the best practice of current employees. Okay, so maybe put it up here. See that green arrow? And then have a file drawer for former employees. Okay, maybe it'll be drawer number 2. But do not mix them up together. This will save you so much time, you guys. If you start mixing stuff up, it's not uncommon for BSIS to be there your whole shift. I mean, they can be there 5 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours. If you just mix the information, and they could definitely show up the next day, and every time they show up, for most of you guys, it's an inconvenience. They need to get the job done, so they will tell you they're going to have to show up on another day if they run out of time. This is the third section of drawers. You want to create a file drawer for the Form I-9s. Okay, do not mix them up, you guys. Keep all of the records, former employees, current employees, separate drawers, and then for the I-9 forms, completely separate. So at the very least, 3 separate larger drawers, just like you see in this arrangement here. Okay, so in the employee file, there's payroll data. And if you wanted to, you could just you could write on a piece of paper if you wanted to. I mean, it's going to look unprofessional, but this is the bare minimum what you have to have. You should put on their payroll document. Just title it payroll document. Okay, have the guard's name. The guard's name is Sean Sundell. Put it right there on your right. The home address. Okay, this is where Sean Sundell lives. Put it there. Start date. Okay, you need a position. Okay, protection specialist. You can call this person anything that you want. You don't have to call them security guard. And a termination date if this is applicable. Okay. My recommendation, you guys, is don't put more than what is needed. Just put this. There's one company I know that they put the site location of the guard. Okay. If you put a site location that's maybe a different county or significantly farther than the main office on file, the next question that BSI is going to ask is this: where are you operating out of? There's a hint that you're not operating out of the main office. You're operating somewhere farther away, somewhere that's not on record with BSIS. They're going to want the branch certificate. You need to have a branch office license. If you're not, that's a violation. Okay. This is why only give them what they are entitled to look at, and do not put extra information. Don't put their site on there, you guys. It's just going to create extra work for you, extra explanations. Okay. Get that file folder. Put the guard's name there and write on their payroll file. Put file number 1 of 4. Now, my suggestion at this moment is to have a total of 4 files, and then just split them into the main file. So this document that's called payroll document, you're going to put that in the. So I know on the previous slide I discussed 4 files, or I think I named the file folder number 4. Here I'm going to go through 5 folders, but it's really with you guys, whatever you want. If you think you need to make 6 file folders or 3, 4, it's totally up to you. So the first file folder I'm going to name the payroll file, and it's going to be file number 1, And number 2 is file 2. It's the BSIS training record folder. And then form I-9. It's going to be file number 3. Remember, these are all separate folders. And you can connect them all if you like to, well, together. However, with the form I-9, that is the folder that you want to keep in a probably a totally different storage bin. Okay, we have a professional development training file. I call it number 4. This could be something, maybe this person attended a seminar, some type of training that has nothing to do with BSIS. Authorized courses. Maybe it's not an authorized course, but it's a great course. Maybe it's a better course. But I always want to have a file that you don't want to mix it in with a regular BSIS training record, because under the heat of stress, you might accidentally hand upon demand an analyst a course that was not certified by BSIS, that's just a professional development course, and try to pass it off on accident as a certified course, and you're going to be penalized for that. Keep it separate. And then another folder, we'll call it file number 5, for evaluations, commendation, and discipline. It's your business to know how well your employee is doing. BSIS does not care whether this person received an evaluation, a commendation. Just keep it separate, you guys. The more information you bunch together intentionally, the longer your inspection is going to take. It could take the whole day. It could take several days if you're not organized. So organize it as best as you can, hopefully using these best practices I'm showing you. So payroll file, which is file 1, and then file 2, the training record. You want to retain these 2 records for 2 years. And then above that, you have the form I-9. You have to retain that for 3 years. BSIS, they might ask you for the form I-9. They might not, but just have it available, okay? And don't mix in the I-9 form, you guys, with all the other training records or payroll files. You do that, or if you have an I-9 form that is maybe not filled out, or filled out in a way that draws suspicion to BSIS, well, they're going to be contacting perhaps ICE. I mean, maybe you want that to happen or not, but the overall objective of BSIS is not to enforce immigration laws or any laws that Department of Homeland Security regularly enforces. I mean, they might do a partnership, but that's not the organization's main goal. So don't put things where they don't belong. A reminder, number 1 and 2 are the records that you're going to retain for 2 years. Everything else, it's really up to you. These are the best practices for employee file inspections. You always want to have the qualified manager present. This is the person who has taken the qualified manager exam. This person knows, or is supposed to know, the business professions code more than anybody else in your organization. Have them present. You have them present, there's less of a chance of you inquiring some type of liability, either through the business professions code, maybe civil liability, less of a chance of an enforcement action. If the qualified manager knows the business professions code, knows the civil code, knows the code of regulations, knows them, and guides the organization into following that rule of law. You don't want to volunteer any files or documents. Being extra helpful will probably not help you. When you're being extra helpful and BSIS finds maybe incriminating information or information that is omitted in there, don't be that extra helpful person. You don't want to volunteer files that are past 2 years. Do not store extra information in the first 3 files. Remember, the first file is a payroll document. Second file is the BSIS training record with BSIS specific courses. And then the third file is the I-9 form. Don't put extra information in there at all. Okay, don't mix information. Just keep it simple. Your audit or your inspection is going to go a lot smoother. So you might be asking me, well, Sean, where do I store the other documents? Well, what's to say you can't create 2 additional or more file folders, and we'll call one of them file number 6, folder 6. You could put your job application in there or any other document that you think is important. And then for file folder number 7, you can create a medical file. Now, you don't want to mix up your medical files with perhaps the job application file or the grievances, the discipline record file. You don't want to give any third party the impression that this person being disciplined or not promoted because of an ADA, American Disability Act protected disability. So you don't protect, maybe this person is a protected class. You don't want to give anyone that impression. So put the medical file in a separate file. I know that many of you are wondering right now, how many files is BSIS going to inspect? Okay, I know you guys are very, very curious. So based on past practices, this is some intelligence that I received. A PPO that has 10 employees or less than 10 employees, 10 or less, all employee files are going to be audited. That's the terminated employees and the current employees in the past 2 years. If you're a PPO and you have between 25 and 150 employees, 25 files will be audited. If you have between 150 and 499 employees, 50 files will be audited. If you have more than 500 employees, and hopefully all of you will be there someday, maybe some of you watching this are at 500 employees, 75 files, no more than 75 files. You guys, these are not exact numbers. As you can see, the question here arises, well, what about between 10 and 25 employees? I don't have intelligence for you to produce a number. All I could do is produce information that I am aware of. These are not set in stone. BSIS can, instead of, if you have 500 or more employees, instead of looking at 75 files, they can do 100. They can do 200 files. But I think that the numbers that I have here are fairly accurate. And this is how you have to prepare. Another question that you might ask me is, Sean, how long is BSIS going to take to review all these files? I mean, do you have the whole day for them to audit 75 files? Well, you might have to make the whole day, unfortunately, for them, okay? So for files that are organized and they're accurate, give or take about 3 to 5 minutes for each review. And this is going to depend on the reviewer. You have a new person or somebody that wants to be more meticulous. And remember, meticulous or somebody that spends more time does not equate to less errors. Okay, maybe this person just likes to take a slower amount of time looking at each files. Okay, the auditors that I know, you guys, they're meticulous. They will look through every single line on there, and this is why I developed this portion of the program. Okay, I've been there before, and I think that this video will actually help the BSIS analyst. It'll help them save a lot of time if everybody just follows the law. And I'm not saying that this is the law, but this is the better practices. So for the training record, you guys, BSIS generally, they're going to look for the 32 hours of training. Okay, so they have a standard that they go by. You know, each person's going to have their own standard, but this seems to help. Is they open up the BSIS training record for a particular employee, and they're going to look for the 32 hours of training plus the 8 hours of the powers to arrest course. They're going to look for the employee start date and then search for the 4-hour annual refresher course. So they're heavy on this, you guys, BSIS. They see that the employee has been there for 2 years or longer, they're going to look, I'm sorry, longer than the year, they're going to look for that 4-year annual refresher course. Obviously, they've been there 9 months. They're not going to look for the annual refresher course, but over a year. BSIS knows that there's a high turnover, so immediately they're going to look for the dates of employment. For many of you, this slide is an actual reminder for those of you who should by now, by this moment, know what the educational requirements are for private security guards in the state of California. But if you don't, or maybe you forgot, hey, it's only a reminder, don't worry about it. There's different phases in the private security guards employment life, so to speak, where certain mandatory courses will need to be completed. There's courses before hire, within 30 days of hire, within 6 months of hire, and the yearly refresher course, which begins 12 months before the expiration date of the guard card from the employee. So for before hire, the employee needs to complete 8 hours of training. This is so important because BSIS, they're going to look at the date of hire and expect the employee to have 8 hours by a certain date. Now, here I have weapons of mass destruction, 4 hours in Acertix. Right now, as we speak, Chris Holden, assemblyman from California, he drafted Assembly Bill 229. If this passes, and it will probably pass, weapons of mass destruction will be removed from the initial 8 hours of training and be replaced with use of force training instead. Weapons of mass destruction is actually going to be an elective. I'm almost positive that this is going to pass. Stay on top of this Assembly Bill, ladies and gentlemen. It's Assembly Bill 229. So within 30 days, we're looking at the column in the middle. Within 30 days, the employee has to complete public relations, observation, communication, liability, and a total of 16 hours. And as a reminder, they're going to make sure that within 30 days, not 60, within 30 days of your guard's employment, that all of these courses were completed. And we're at the column on our right. There's two columns on the right. The one on the top tells us that within 6 months of hire, they need to complete 16 hours of training. And these are elective courses. And these are specific elective courses that BSIS authorizes. And then at the bottom right, we have the yearly refresher course. Our guard staff needs to complete 8 hours of training. And that's 12 months, within 12 months of the anniversary date of the private security guard that is under your employment. Okay, so very important that your employee has completed these trainings within the specified amount of time. This is a common reason for a private patrol operator to not be in compliance with the Business Professions Code. This isn't here. Okay, and they're going to come back and they're going to have you rectify this if your employee doesn't have this training. So I talked about that there are certain elective courses. There's specific ones that your guard has to take. I mean, they're elective courses, but there are specific elective courses that they're allowed to take, and I'm going to go through them right now. So if you see on the right an elective that's in black, that means it's a 4-hour course. And then in blue, that's a 2-hour course. And then if it's in brown, it's going to be an 8-hour course. So post orders and assignments, that's a 4-hour course because it's in black. Employer policies, orientation, that's in black. This is actually post orders and assignments and employer policies and orientation. These are courses that you can actually issue or you can provide to your employee. And usually this is the onboard training or the orientation phase of your organization. Evacuation procedures, notice that it came out in blue. That means that they get 2 hours credit. Okay, it's 2 hours max credit for evacuation procedures. And then officer safety, it's black, so it's 4 hours of credit. Arrest, search, and seizure, that's the advanced search and seizure course. That's in black, so 4 hours. Access controls in blue. A lot of these electives, ladies and gentlemen, you can assist your employee and provide certification of completion. Trespassing, that's in black, 4 hours. Laws, codes, and regulations, and ordinances, that's only 2. First aid, it's a 4-hour course. Handling difficult people, it's in black, it's a 4-hour course. Workplace violence, 4 hours. Okay, let's review some other courses. Chemical agents, that's a 4-hour course. Preserving the incident scene, 4-hour course. Remember, this is specific titles of courses that BSI is expecting to see on the certificate. Crowd control. If a vendor has a different title of a course, make sure you have them change it so that it matches with the statutory language. It needs to say crowd control. Driver safety. Supervision. Okay, these are all 4-hour courses, you guys, except parking and traffic control. That's a 2-hour course. Radio procedures, 2-hour course. The BSI certified course in firearms training. This is your firearm permit course. It is a 2-day course, but you only get 8 hours of credit. The baton course, it's a 8-hour course, but you're only going to get 4 hours of elective credit. And the school security guard training, that's a 24-hour course, and you're only going to get 8 hours of credit. Introduction to Executive Protection, that's a very exciting course. That's 4 hours. Your annual firearms requalification, that course, you can get 4 hours of credit for that. Just make sure that you have a certificate that has the amount of hours. And I'll show you guys how to properly do the certificates. The fire safety course, that's 4 hours. And the course in the use of a stun gun, that's a 4-hour course. You know, a lot of these courses, the instructors some of them, they're actually TASER certified. If it says on the certificate TASER certification or TASER certified, it has a logo of Axon Incorporated. You could throw that out the door. It doesn't count. It needs to say course in the use of a stun gun. You guys, exactly how I have it, it's supposed to say that on there. If you don't, I'm not saying BSIS is going to reject that training. I'm just saying that they're going to be asking a lot of questions, and they may or may not accept it. Depends on them. Depends on the BSIS, their BSIS leadership, including their chief. So continuing education, you can actually conduct employer-based training, but just make sure that you call it continuing education. Put a hash mark or slash mark there, dash mark, and then write annual refresher. So it should say continuing education, dash mark, annual refresher. And this course that you create as an employer needs to be supported by evaluation of the licensed guards and skills. Remember, you can create the course or just make it much more efficient depending on how you operate your business. Have them go to an outside vendor and have them complete that continuing education course, so you don't have to allocate some time and perhaps some resources for that. You want to create, in my opinion, you want to create a short quiz or exam that tests the knowledge and skills. See, where it says supported by evaluation, well, how do you evaluate a guard's skills? Well, you can have them perform an activity, or you could have them take a short quiz or exam that tests the knowledge, skills that you want them to acquire during their training. You can also have them do a teach back as well. Okay, that's where they learn the concept and they present it back to the class. Okay, you can also create a practical application showing the guard understands the information presented. So, for example, you got to do this where it's legal and in a controlled environment. You create a fire. Again, make sure that it's a legal fire. You can even contact your local fire department and ask and what a legal fire consists of, and then have your guard, the student, extinguish the fire. That already shows that your employee was taught a skill, and your support by evaluation is them actually putting the fire out. And it doesn't just have to be fire, by the way. Make sure that your topic or your subject is applicable to private security work. If it's not going to count. You can actually repeat previous courses if you like. I mean, it'd be great as a refresher. Maybe your employee will learn something different. You don't have to do it that way, but it's something that's definitely you want to consider. So what you can also do is you name the course continuing education, you put that dash mark. If you are replicating a course, a previously authorized course, just call it continuing education, put the dash mark, and then put driver safety or whatever name it is, so that BSIS knows that the certificate pertains to continuing education. You want to give them the certificate of completion, make sure that it complies with Title 16, Section 643. You have to have all of the verbiage on there. And of course, I'm not going to leave you guys out in the dark. I'm going to show you how to write up or how to create a certificate of completion. Again, this is a reminder of how to write up a certificate of completion earlier in the course, the beginning of this course. And this course is a lengthy course. It's over 40 hours, but at the beginning of the course, I mentioned how to create certificate of completion. This is a reminder how to do it. As a reminder, when it comes down to audit time, you're going to remember what is supposed to be on that certificate. You can just get a piece of paper, make it look I recommend you make it look professional. Maybe you have somebody create one for you that is used to creating certificates. You put the name of the course right here, communication and significance, whatever course it is, the number of hours, okay, 4 hours, the name of the PPO or the training facility. Okay, if your name is Patrol West 7, put that there. Name of the student, Sean Sundall. Name of the instructor, my man, Instructor Jeff Cooper, the founder of Gunsight. He's my guy. I never met him in person, but I love his books. Date of completion, okay, July 20th, 2023, whatever date it is. You guys, this is really important. There's some vendors out there that will allow you to complete all 32, 40 hours of training in 4 hours or 8 hours or 1 day. That is physically impossible when you consider that these courses, they max out. I mean, you can't say that you completed 8 hours of training when you only completed, I mean, technically 2 hours. I mean, it's BSIs, they look at the dates, and your dates need to reflect accurately when you actually completed the course. And I'm just saying this because there are some people out there that will take all these courses, I mean, quotation marks, take all these courses in one sitting, just by conducting some tests, press the forwarding button. You guys, you're just opening yourselves to liability because you did not actually, if you're an employer and you're taking these courses, or you're accepting these certificates from people who have attended these sketchy training facilities, you're opening yourselves to liability. You did not, these employees are not trained as a certificate says. There has to be a statement that the course complies with the Department of Consumer Affairs Skills Training Course for security guards. That needs to be on there. You could add some information in there if you want, but I recommend you don't put extra information. You need to have a serial number for tracking. You can put whatever you want. Okay, here I put CS for communication and its significance. Okay, for the year it's 20,021. Well, it actually should be 20,023, but just put a number, and then you could put, what month it is. It's June, so I put 06, and then the 10 for the 10th day, and then 01 is just, this is the number. This is the first student in the class, second student. You can create any number system that you want. Just make sure that it makes sense, and that you're able to demonstrate to the BSIS that this is a serial number system that is used for tracking. This certificate needs to be readily available from the PPO and the guard, you guys. Both of you guys need to have it, or both of you ladies need to have it upon demand. Okay, there's some training facilities out there that will allow you for a fee most of the time to use their materials. The thing is this, if that facility, so basically you're using their training materials, but you're using your own instructor, you can't put them as instructor if they're not the instructor. And if they're the ones that taught the course, then their name should be on there. But if you taught the course, then these facility names shouldn't be on there. Okay. Another problem is these facilities, they're not supposed to only keep the records within themselves. I mean, they should be giving you guys copies, giving your guards copies as well. Back in the days, there was some, historically, there's some sketchy firearms training facilities where they keep all of your qualifications, your first, second, third, fourth. They keep that on file. They don't give you copies so that you keep coming back to them. Yes, it is another way that the guard won't lose it because the facility keeps it, but really you don't have control over your own permit, over your own license if you're having a third party keep it. So you need to keep, if you're the guard, you need to keep these training certificates, originals. You're the private patrol operator, make copies, keep it on file, because both of you need to show that on demand. Some are in databases, third-party vendor databases. As long as you're able to go into the computer, enter some information, and on demand show the analysis or investigator the certificate, you should be fine. And then, or even print them out on demand. But it has to be available on demand, and that demand is immediate demand. Well, so we covered a lot of information in an hour and a half. Lots of things that we covered. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that if you follow all of these strategies that are in this presentation that you won't be fined or you won't have your license suspended. I'm just saying that there's less of a chance, and I'm not making any guarantees. Hopefully this video will help you in understanding how to survive an inspection or an audit. I may have hampered pretty tough on BSIS, the analysis and investigators. You guys, most of them are good people. There are some that are very, very sharp. I hate to say this, but many of them are just doing their job. There's always that 1% that is arbitrary, but most of them know what they're doing.